Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Hyman, and I utilize she, her pronouns, and I'm a graduate assistant at the University of Connecticut working in the pre-college summer office. I have a background in college access and college readiness, and a component of that is preparing for the SAT and the ACT. So that's what we're going to be chatting about today. We're going to talk specifically about tactics that you can utilize to develop a study plan that works for you. So before we really dive into this, let's just tackle pretty quickly why preparing for the SAT and the ACT matters. Why should you devote time prior to the test to get ready for it? Aside from the fact that it's a component of your college application and you want to be able to put your best foot forward, when you dedicate time to studying something and preparing for something, you increase your comfortability with that material and with that format. Specifically for the SAT and the ACT, that means increased comfortability with the way that questions are asked, with the syntax that is used so you don't let that trip you up, with the types of questions that are asked so you have a little bit of an inkling of what they might mean when they ask for a certain thing. And additionally, with the amount of time that you have to kind of figure those things out. And so when you don't have to worry about those kinds of things, that means that you can focus your energy on what's exactly in front of you, just answering the question to the best of your abilities and moving on. This will increase your confidence, it'll lower the chance of surprises, and you can really just dig in and do your best on the test. Get all of that preparation for the little things that can confuse you along the way ahead of time so you don't have to deal with it on test day. So let's also talk about some things that you don't need to know to succeed on the SAT and the ACT. Some things that are not worth your time to study. For example, your math textbook, cover to cover. All the geometry, algebra, trigonometry problems in there. You don't need it. Similarly, with your English textbook, cover to cover. You don't need to know every single great novel that's ever been written, the way that every figurative speech device can be utilized. You don't need to know all of that. Additionally, you don't need to spend your time going through every single practice question that you can find. So you're probably now asking me but what do you mean? You're telling me to prepare and now you're telling me that there are these things that I don't need to know. So let's talk about why you don't need to know these things in particular. There's only going to be a few questions per test on the same topic. So what I mean by that is that you could spend 50 hours studying trigonometry, and there may only be 4 trigonometry questions on the entire test. That wasn't an effective use of your time and your energy. Doing that won't help you manage your time on the test. And like I just kind of hinted at, it's really going to deplete your energy, which you're going to need to be able to do your absolute best. This applies for English. You have no idea where they're going to pull passages from, whether it's going to be an academic journal or a magazine article or a novel, and it might even be a novel that you've never heard of. So there's no point in preparing and learning everything you can about a novel when they may pull a passage from somewhere else. What is better to focus your time on is how to dissect that passage, how to make sense of that passage. This will not take as much time, and it won't weigh down your energy as much, because you have ways to apply it in different scenarios. No matter what's presented with you, you'll be able to use some of those similar reading comprehension strategies. And we'll chat a little bit more about why every single practice question you can find also is not your best bet. So moving forward now into what you maybe do need to be aware of to succeed on the SAT and the ACT. I like to call them your strengths and your areas of growth. So to figure these out, I have a couple of ideas. There's some questions that I've got here on the screen that you can ask yourself. I'll walk through it in the way that I would answer it so you can maybe begin to have these kinds of conversations with yourself. So if I were to ask myself, do I enjoy reading? I would say yes. Do I work effectively under time constraints? I do not. Time pressure makes me nervous. Do I feel excited when I solve a new type of math problem? I do not. Math does not get my gears going. And similarly, you can ask yourself similar questions to determine areas of growth and ways you can improve as well. Do I find myself easily distracted when I'm reading a passage that's not particularly of keen interest to me? I typically don't. Does working under pressure add stress to my plate? Indeed it does. These are just a couple of example questions that you can reflect on and ponder as you try to figure out what might be your areas of strength and what might be your areas of growth in terms of preparing for and succeeding on the SAT and the ACT. These topics, your strengths and your areas of growth, we're going to touch on throughout. So if you want to pause this video and take some time to reflect on your strengths and your areas of growth, I really would encourage you to do so. However, reflection is awesome. It's the first step. I want you to take the time to do it. The best way to really nail down and figure out what your strengths and your areas of growth for the SAT and the ACT are is to take a practice exam. I know you probably are rolling your eyes at me right now. You're thinking, Nicole, that takes so much time. I don't have time. I have this, this, and this to do. I have this sports practice to go to. I have to do this with my family. I want to do this with my friends. I get it. I know. I was like that too. However, you want to use your time efficiently and effectively when you're studying for the SAT and the ACT because you have all of those things that you care about. Because there's more important and interesting things going on in your world than this exam. So the best way to make sure that your future studying is efficient and effective is to know what it is that you need to study. And the best way to do that is taking a practice exam. Yes, like I have here on the screen, the PSAT does count. You can utilize that as your practice test. It's in the name. However, if you did not take the PSAT, there are resources out there where you can take a mock practice exam. I recommend Googling it. You can find a number of resources online. I've got some linked later on in the show as well. There are also plenty of SAT prep books as well if you are interested in making a purchase for one of those. A number of them have practice exams that you can take as well. My only recommendation when you take a practice exam is make sure you time yourself, because working under the time constraints is one of the things I hear most frequently as a reason that students are challenged during the SAT and the ACT, which is a good thing about the PSAT because you already had the time limit there. All right, so once you've taken your practice exam and you've figured out what might be your strengths, your areas of growth, then you can focus on developing an effective study plan for you. This is not going to be the same thing that might have worked for your older sibling or the person that graduated in the top 10 of the senior class last year or 2 years ago. What works best for you is personal. That's why I want you to take that practice exam so you can figure out where you are strong and where you might need to grow. So we're going to go in reverse a little bit. Your effective study plan needs to be focused primarily on improving your areas of growth. Like I've said, we want to utilize your time wisely. If you took that PSAT and you got every single geometry question correct, awesome. Don't spend your time studying geometry. But if you noticed that you were getting tripped up on some algebra questions, maybe study algebra. You see where I'm going at here? You want to focus on improving where there's room for improvement. Not to say that when you're already strong at something that you can't improve. I do not believe that that is the case. But to be time efficient, like we have here, to utilize your study time wisely, focus on where there is evident room for improvement on the exam. I think the underlying factor for your effective study plan that is time efficient and focused on improving your areas of growth is one that is consistent. I personally don't think it's best to sit down one Saturday afternoon, study for 3 hours, and call it done. I think it's much more effective to be consistent with your study plan. So what I mean by that is maybe you spend 20 minutes a night preparing for the exam in the couple of months leading up to it. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but over the course of a few months, that really adds up. That helps increase your comfortability, increase your confidence. You can still time yourself on practice sections of the exam, and you can focus primarily on improving your areas of growth. It doesn't have to be a weighty, time-heavy burden in your life to prepare. If 20 minutes is not enough for you to dig in, that's okay. Maybe an hour is what works for you. Maybe an hour every other day is what's best for you. But try to figure out a way where you can be consistent with it, where from Monday to Friday of a week, you can point to this is what I did and this is where I grew. And being able to point that out for yourself can be motivating and encouraging as you're moving forward with your study plan. Like I mentioned, there are a number of really wonderful free resources online that I would encourage everybody to take advantage of. You do not need to pay for an expensive tutor to succeed on the SAT or the ACT. If you are able to have a tutor, that is wonderful, but that is not the only way to succeed. I really encourage everyone to check out these two resources. Kuta Software has really awesome worksheets for reviewing concept-specific areas. So if you specifically, after you took that practice exam, realized that you needed that focus on algebra, check out Kuta Software to do some specific algebra-based practice. Similarly, Khan Academy is really great for practice questions and tests. So I'd recommend utilizing Khan Academy if you want to do a practice reading comprehension section. Do it timed. They have the option where you don't have to be timed. Make sure you time yourself so you can also practice working within the time constraints. They also have full practice tests online that you can utilize. You could set aside a time every 3 weeks or 4 weeks where after you've been doing your consistent practicing that you can sit down and take a practice exam and see your improvement from your first test to your practice exam to your actual test day. These two resources are absolutely incredible. I have seen countless students use these resources and take the SAT and the ACT and come out very, very pleased with their score and ultimately use that as a component to get accepted to a number of really awesome colleges and universities. But remember, at the end of the day, a good study plan is just one that you'll stick to. Remember to prioritize your needs and what works best for you. So if 20 minutes a day, every day, feels like it's not going to be your jam, don't do it. That's just a suggestion. Test it out and figure out what works best for you. And ultimately, something that I want to encourage everybody to remember as they're preparing for the SAT and the ACT is that this is just one component of many on your college application. It will not make or break you whether you get a perfect score or whether you're not so pleased with your score. You are more than a number regardless of what that number is. And on your college application, there's going to be more on there than just this number. You'll have your admissions essays, you'll have your letters of recommendation, they'll have what clubs and organizations you're involved with. So remember that, keep this in mind, and keep that framework so you don't get overwhelmed and place too much pressure on yourself. At the end of the day, it's not worth it. So y'all, this was quick. We're gonna wrap up here. If you are interested in crafting a personalized study plan focusing specifically on your areas of growth and what timeframes might work best for you if you want some support in creating that plan, please feel free to contact me. We can communicate via email. My email's here on the screen. If you are interested in having a phone call or a Skype conversation, we can do that as well. So if there are any ways that I can support you in crafting your study plan for the SAT and the ACT, please let me know. I'm excited to talk with you. Have a good day, everyone.